Hello everyone. Today is Thursday and I'm happy to be back. We will begin with a small prayer. Please be seated in any comfortable posture. Eyes gently closed, body straight and still. Become aware of the calm, relaxed flow of breath. Calm breath in, calm breath out. Total awareness of each inhalation and exhalation. Bring your awareness to the eyebrow center. Visualize a bright red rising sun in the eyebrow center. Become aware of the brightness, the shape, the color. I will chant Om 3 times, then a Vedic hymn. Those who wish to join, take a deep breath in. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Hari Om Tat Sat. So we shall begin with where we left last time. We had already discussed that spirituality as we know it begins with natural curiosities and queries. There is no age bar for this. It may not begin for a person by the time he is even 60 or 70. And sometimes very small children can come up with questions which can finally lead them to the spiritual path. Does not mean that they have to become renunciates, but it only makes them more and more curious to seek for answers. And if they are not satisfied with the answers that are given to them, they begin to look within. We also try to clarify a few points like what is Hinduism. Hinduism, as I am going to refer to, is a cultural nationality that thrived and continues to thrive in the land around and beyond Sindh. There are a couple of few more points to this. There are a lot of questions that come up in the minds of people, questions that have been asked before. Uh, how is Hinduism different from, let's say, Christianity or Islam or Judaism or any other religion? Hinduism itself is not a religion. There have been many thought processes that have been there in this country, and all of them have been addressed to as Hinduism, partially because they all influenced each other, had discussions, maybe even initial days, even had strong, violent conflicts also. We do hear about conflicts between Vaishnavas and Shaivas. I myself come from basically a Shakta family which took to Shaivism. And since our king was a Vaishnava, he had uh, resettled us in a different zone so that there may not be any conflict. So there are always views, ideas that each clan or community evolves, and sometimes they may be unwilling to give up that thought. But within India, all of them had a space. There may have been adjustments, like in our case, there was a resettlement. Even in the case of Lord Krishna, he had resettled his people. I think more that was more of a political move, but he had resettled his people in Dwarika. So Hinduism in itself is not a religion because we lived together, we were influenced by the same geography, we had networks and relationships, working relationships, and this led to a way of thinking and common ideas which we respected, which we find in the Smritis mostly. We had common ideals and idols. And I say idols, it is people who were respected. Like there is something called Vidurniti. Everyone might have been respecting it. There's Manusmriti. Everyone would have been respecting it. So when there is a common thread that binds us, we begin to think on similar lines, and therefore people might like us to club as one religion. But there have been various thought processes that have thrived here. The same goes for the term Bharat. Understanding the term Bharat can also help one to understand what is Hinduism. Bha means illumination, something that illumines, and Rat is the place where this illumination continues to happen. So all the regions that finally bowed to the knowledge, not to the market theory, not to the theories of tribal ideas, but to common understanding, the need for peace, the need for coexisting. When these ideas became prominent, where these ideas became prominent, naturally there was a common understanding between these areas, and we learned to coexist. Politically, the kings may have changed, the regions where those kings had influences may have changed, but one thing was common, that we had some general understanding. And irrespective of what was the political change, that did not affect mutual relationships. Even today, there may be a different power structure within a state. UP might have some seats which may have gone to Congress or to another party. like what is that Mulayam Singh Yadav's party. Mulayam Singh Yadav is no more. God bless his soul. But his son Akhilesh has the party. I'm forgetting the name. Sapa. They call it Sapa, but I am forgetting the full form of Samajwadi Party. So Samajwadi Party may be prominent in some of the seats. So all of this does not mean that the people will have different, uh, completely different understanding. People may move around, people may have relationships, people may have activities, people may have businesses, people may have alliances, marriage alliances, or any other form of alliances. People may have games going on, sports going on, drama theater going on. Those are the needs of the or realities of the common man. They were never really affected. They do not get affected, and they were not affected. They may get affected in some extreme cases. We are not talking of those extreme cases. So it was this understanding that prevailed even in the past. And therefore, while people may try to divide us on the basis of political realities, the fact was we stood as one as a society, and we aligned with the politicians or the kings of those times when there was an attack from outside or when there was a need within the nation, and we all got together as a society, as a culture for common needs. India is a land that was nurtured and evolved under the guidance of the rishis. So that is why, if the word religion comes in, we prefer to call us Sanatanis, or we, the people who follow the eternal religion. This religion does not change. Other religions may morph into something else, but the common values do not change. The belief systems that thrived here can be broadly categorized as one that rose out of intellectual understanding and that accept knowledge as the chief architect of the society or the thinking process. Others that arose out of emotional fulfillment and see faith as the chief architect of forms of belief systems. Among those that consider knowledge as chief architect, there are those that swear by wisdom of Vedas as final, and others those that consider experience and tangible results as final. Those that consider Vedas as the supreme authority were popularly categorized as Nyaya, or that which evolves through logic, Vaisheshika, that thinking that evolves out of classifications, Yoga, that which evolves out of self discipline, Sankhya, which evolves about understanding the creation as a binary of energy and intellect. Purvamimamsa was basically a collection of rituals and activities that people felt was necessary for calming the forces and having a better relationship with the forces that govern the creation. Uttar Mimamsa was is basically the knowledge part, the discussion part, the analytical approach. After having gone through the mental discipline and training of the previously mentioned topics of Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga, Sankhya. Here, yoga actually means only the theoretical part or basic mental approach where has one explains how his physical practices have been affecting his mind and spiritual progress. So, when we say yoga here, it is more of an academic approach. Yoga in the real process has various origins, has various approaches. Therefore, we term it in different names, but the yoga here that has been mentioned Normally, we will read about only in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. That was the main text. Those that considered wisdom that came from toil and hard work and engaging with issues of the world prefer to call themselves as Shramana and are explained by the Vedics or the academicians as Buddhism, and its two or three parts: Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, Yogachara, and Yogachara. And the other two are Jaina and Charvaka theory. And as I explained before, the Shramanas themselves prefer to categorize in the Pali texts we find as in English I'll just say it: amoralism, fatalism, materialism, which was the forte of Charvaka, which later Charvaka became the main propounder. Shashvatavada or eternalism, restraint, which was the part of Jainism, uh, and agnosticism. Then there have also been faiths that arose out of evolution of emotional investment and experiences and experiments in lifestyles as well as processes in health management. Broadly, they got partially absorbed into Shaktism, Vaishnavism, and Shaivism. Shakta is the worship of the goddess, Vaishnava is the worship of Vishnu or any of his forms like Rama or Krishna. Shaivism is worship of basically Shiva. There were yet those that arose out of experiences of administrators, elderly and responsible citizens, and got popular in folk songs and tales. There was also mention of those processes that evolved out of organized efforts of survival and were more market driven. Mostly, I have not come across this in India, most probably because we had other intellectual forces, rishis, directing things. So these may have not become very prominent. But they may have certainly existed, but they could not become very prominent, and therefore we should not be discussing them. We do not. I do not know of the Indian systems which became prominent, but certainly in the world we see two very strong groups, and but we won't discuss them because they are irrelevant for our purpose, and they have very little constructive to offer in one's spiritual growth because they are basically market driven. They are basically about mobilizing people. They are basically about keeping discipline within those communities. There have been various other there may have been various other groups, some of which I know of, but we will keep out of that because this is more of a semi academic discussion. And I had also mentioned that my current focus in the basic of topics discussed are from Sri Dongreji's speech, a very popular orator in Gujarat. He was in Gujarat. That I am not sure if he is anymore, but he was very popular. He is still respected very much in Gujarat. That's why I took up the text because I wanted to know more about him also. The text he is very well known for is the profound Purana called Srimad Bhagavat, popularly known as the classical text that has exploits of Krishna and his various avatars. I will also have an inclination to share more of the understanding that is behind the text so that we make use of our own understanding and find our own answers. I had also mentioned that religion I consider to be more of the standard of play school or kindergarten of self discipline because it really does not, it has a great influence on our lives, but it really does not offer much for a person who has a lot of intellectual hunger. Vedanta, one explanation of Vedanta is the texts that form the end part of Vedas, which is mostly Upanishads. Another derivation which we can use is Ved. Ved means to know. Ved is collection of understanding or learnings. And Vedanta is the analytical approach to these understandings and the discussions of these understandings. Once we have this kind of definition, it becomes easier to draw from other texts also. It becomes easier to draw from other nations and other geographies also, and I'm not averse to learning from anyone. Uh, of course, I'm sure most of what has been discussed in other places and what we may start discussing, we may find that it has already been mentioned in the Upanishads in some form or other. So, to me, it is all Vedanta, and my interest is not purely to propagate any text, but to have a healthy analysis and understanding. I had also mentioned about sannyasa. Now, sannyasa is a term which includes various traditions. Each of them may not call themselves as sannyasis, may call them as something else, but follow a very similar rigorous lifestyle. One of the I mean, some of the names can be like the Comforta yogis. They have a very similar clothing and lifestyle. You have Udasis, which generated out of which were created by Sri Chandraji, who was the son of the I think the first son of Guru Nanak. And then you have Tyagis, Bairagis. There are various groups. There are this Mahima Gadi in Orissa. There can be many groups. It is just that after Lord Shankaracharya, after Adi Guru Shankaracharya, he uh, combined or mobilized all of them as he felt the need to mobilize people with similar ideas. And most of these smaller groups were absorbed into the larger construct, and they may have varied explanations. That's why they are different, but they have a lot of common elements. So all of them can be called as sannyasis. Now, again, different groups have different rules, some common, some not so common. Different groups have different allowances or privileges, which every group may not have, but they have a common thread that all of them are renunciates, all of them believe in knowledge, all of them believe in practice, all of them believe in protection of the heritage of Indian culture. To me, sannyasa was more as a platform that validated my rise over differences and means to seek right means and direction, to have right means and direction for peace and common coexistence. Of course, in the earlier days, it was more of a political nature and more hot-blooded, let us say. But yes, the common thread then and now has remained the same. Srimad Bhagavat has been a source of contentment and mental peace to many if one listens with faith. There's one more thing which I would like to discuss, which will be coming up again and again. There is the term direct knowing and indirect knowing, Paroksha Darshan and Aparoksha Darshan. So the word darshan itself can have various meanings. So when one goes to the temple, he says, I am going there for darshan. So he's going to be in the presence of the Lord. Temples are basically abodes of the deity which has been installed there. They are not just any place of worship, they are the home of that deity, and everyone in a way projects their faith to to the deity, and that has a certain kind of uh, effect on the energy of the place, and that is why it is very different from the worship places of any other religion, let us say. These are homes, these are abodes, these are not just places of worship. You can define a place of worship by just having a platform and everyone worshipping there, but that's not a home of anyone. But temples are places of worship and also homes of the deity which have been installed there. We had also spoken about Sat, Chit, and Anand. We had explained, or I had explained, that the Sat is basically the all pervading, and God has been seen as Sat, Chit, and Anand, whether you see explained as the unmanifest God or the manifest God. Yeah, I forgot to explain Aparoksha Darshan. So you see, if you go to a certain place, you get a certain feeling that you are there, you are in the presence of someone. You may not see that person, but you feel it. You know it, that it is there. That is Aparoksha Darshan. When the gopis who loved Krishna so much used to contemplate upon him and their games with him, their playing with him, they almost used to think themselves as Krishna, not just being in the presence of Krishna, but themselves as Krishna. Of course, Krishna was not there. He had gone off to Dwarika. But the connection was so strong that they would see themselves as Krishna. That is indirect knowing, indirect experiencing. So these are two terms which will come a lot, which is direct knowing and indirect knowing, or direct experience, directly experiencing and indirectly experiencing. So as explained previously, Sat is that which pervades everything, Chit is which witnesses everything. So light which falls on various things is not doing anything, it is witnessing them. Anand is the experience of fullness and it is unmanifest. There is a saying, Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande, that which resides in the body manifests in the outer world. So I'll be taking 5 or 10 minutes more. So just to make up and to cover something more today. The Anand that we reside, that that resides within us, normally we seek outside in our experiences through external objects and activities. Ananda is our real identity. The fullness, the feeling of fullness that makes us feel fulfilled is our real identity. The text Srimad Bhagavat teaches us to realize it or manifest it in our lives. Dongreji Maharaj used to use the example of butter in the milk. Just as one needs to put milk through a process where churning helps bring out the butter, one has to put one's thought processes through a churn to bring out the experience of this sense of unconditional fulfillment. Just as one does not experience the butter or the clarified butter in the milk, similarly, one does not experience the all pervading Supreme Godhead in the world despite being manifestations of the same. So there are many types of Anand explained in Taittiriya Upanishad. We shall be discussing only two of them, which is fulfillment that comes out of external means and self-fulfillment. Fulfillment that comes through external means goes away through destruction of external means as well. So if you like bikes, if you're riding a bike, if the bike goes away, you do not, you feel that lacuna, you feel that vacuum within you, that emptiness within you. And there are many who do not have external possessions but are always in happiness or fulfilled sense of fulfillment, experience of fulfillment. This implies that the source of this fulfillment is within us. Being able to experience this fulfillment in all situations and states makes us complete, a state attributed to the Supreme Godhead, in this case, Lord Krishna. Till one does not attain fulfillment, one cannot experience this happiness or Anand is not exactly happiness, but is the happiness that arises out of fullness. It is that feeling of completeness or fullness. Everything in the world is impermanent and therefore cannot be a source of fulfillment, since when it goes, the experience it has given to will also go away. That is why one's connection with God has been given the status of source of complete fulfillment, since God alone has the status of ever existent existence and is complete. Human existence alone can help one experience the Supreme Personality. So, what time would it be now? So, we will take a few more minutes and then we shall conclude. The Lord can be experienced in its various forms. He can be experienced through the dreams and visions. He can be experienced in the places of worship, in the presence of the deity, or it can be the indirect experience in the unmanifest form. We may some strongly believe that the God is helping us around us, but we may not see uh, the idol directly. Experience of Godhead defines success in life. Vedanta speaks of evident experience of two types, direct and indirect. Seeing God in specific place is direct experience. Knowing God as source of everything, seeing God in everything as everything, oneself as not different from God, is indirect experience where one does not see but knows and experiences oneself. One can experience this out of understanding or out of love. In both the cases, certain absorption with the thought of God and attainment of oneness is essential. Having been to the temple, one needs to see God in everything and all. This is the special seeing. That God which resides in me resides in all. Wherever your mind takes your attention, one can see God in all, or one must see God in all. Physical darshan has limited benefits. It is the indirect experience that makes one feel fulfilled. Wise see the Lord within themselves. This viewing is non duality. Lord Krishna's exploits and leelas are there as gopis contemplating upon them. See the Lord in their own selves. Leela dekhan मैं भी हो गई लाल. So here the gopis, this is a line from the gopis where they become so absorbed in the dance or the leelas of Lord Krishna that they begin to see themselves as Krishna himself. They do not see themselves as different from Krishna. One who sees Lord in themselves, that jiva becomes one with the Lord. One who sees Lord in oneself cannot stay away from the Lord. He becomes one with the Lord. This is the result of study of the Bhagavad. Wise know the Lord through knowledge and understanding. Devotees experience the Lord through love. So actually, there is a very strong effort by people to compartmentalize one's experience with oneness. Personally, I am not a very strong proponent of that because each of those experiences, each of those compartments are a part of one complete whole. So if the mosaic has different small colors, they make up the whole tile. Now somebody may say the right way of making the tile is having that color or that shape or this shape. I'm not a very strong proponent of that. I personally believe one has to have understanding. Every experience leads to understanding. Pure understanding alone is not enough. You can study everything about an instrument, but you may not be able to operate it. You may be able to operate it, but you may not know much about the instrument. So I'm really very clear that there is either yoga or no yoga. This bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, kriya yoga. All these are part of the same yoga. You may practice something, you may not practice something. You may practice something in different proportions. Without faith, even knowledge does not manifest. You have to have faith in that knowledge. Without effort, that faith does not grow. If you don't make effort, you may not be able to make your faith stronger. As more and more experience comes, knowledge does manifest. There's no doubt about it. That is why when rishis say something, we immediately relate to it. When the so-called people with knowledge say something, we feel doubtful about the person, and most probably the person himself is doubtful about what he's saying. That is why maybe he's not able to get across to us. Srimad Bhagavat is the text that introduces one to the Lord and is the means of being one with the Lord. Jiva is part of Narayana, it has to become one with him. Therefore, scripture explains various means. The path of proactive action or karma marga, the path of knowledge or understanding or jnana marga, and the path of bhakti or devotion. The knowledge of Upanishads takes one to indirect knowing or experiencing. So we will discuss these paths in the next session. The path of proactive action, the path of knowledge or understanding, and the path of devotion. These are three prominent ones. There can be many more, but we will discuss these three in the next session. Before we end, I would also like to mention about Sri Vyasji. I'm not sure if I spoke about him. Vyas normally implies the teacher. Badran Vyas is one of the Vyas, and he is supposed to have compiled or put all the texts in readable form. Uh, Texts did exist, but mostly they were passed on word to mouth, word of mouth, by teacher to disciple. But it was Badrayana Vyas who, after Mahabharata, felt all this knowledge is going to die out because people, by the time they recover from the aftermath of the war, uh, they might not find enough teachers. And this is true even today. We do not find teachers easily for different subjects, and when we find teachers, we find that they lack the experience, the understanding. So his idea was that the knowledge itself is complete, and if the right person is able to go through it, the knowledge will eventually manifest within the person. The person will have the indirect experience of the knowledge, will able to understand what was being said by the rishis. So that's all for today. We again spoke about the we summarized the whole session of the last time. We will continue to summarize only the previous sessions. We won't. We may speak some of the points, but we will try to stick to uh, the topic of the day. And we also tried to we discussed about the experience of the Lord, how it can be through dreams and visions in places of worship, and as well as being indirect experience. So direct experience and indirect experience. Direct is where you see it through your worldly eyes. Indirect is where you see it through the eyes of the mind or the intuition. So that's all for today. Hari Om Tat Sat. Please be seated in any comfortable posture. And any questions, you can WhatsApp me. The number is the same as shown last time, and I'll put it up again. So you can WhatsApp, or I would certainly ask you to continue contributing. Thank you. Be seated in any comfortable posture, eyes gently closed, body straight and still. Become aware of the calm, relaxed flow of breath. Calm breath in, calm breath out. Take a deep breath in. Bring your awareness to the eyebrow center. Visualize a bright red rising sun in the eyebrow center. Chant Om 3 times, then a Vedic hymn. Take a deep breath in. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Hari Om Tat Sat. Bring your palms together, rub your palms, place them on your eyes 3 times. Just cup your eyes, do not rub your eyes. 3 times. Gently open your eyes. Hari Om Tat Sat. See you again next time.